I think we can give the floor to Dr. Roland for his last presentation. Dr. Roland? Yeah, he already started his screen sharing. Yeah, please go ahead. Roland, I guess your mic is in mute.
Hey, Roland, we don't hear you.
Dr. Roland.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Presentation mode. And you see also the slides.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, good. Yeah, super good.
Okay, good. So, introduction to short-chain chlorinated paraffins and initial inventory considerations. Chlorinated paraffins are a complex mixture of substances which are alkylates, which are chlorinated. So, according to their different chain length, chlorinated paraffins are subdivided into short-chain chlorinated paraffins. So they have a carbon chain length of 10 to 13. Medium chain chlorinated paraffins, MCCPs, chain lengths 14 to 17, and long chain chlorinated paraffin with a chain length of longer carbon 18 to carbon 30. Chlorinated paraffins are produced with different chlorination degree. This means they can contain 30% chlorine or up to 70% chlorine. The major chlorinated mixtures which are made contain about 52% chlorine. And these various options of chain length and chlorination degree make them very flexible and versatile. And today, approximately 200 commercial chlorinated paraffin commercials formulations are in use. The Stockholm Convention has listed in 2017 short-chain chlorinated paraffins with a chlorine content of more than 48% as POPs. But it needs to be highlighted that also other chlorinated paraffin mixture with an average lower degree, if they contain more than 1% of short-chain chlorinated paraffins, can also be a POP mixture. So today, mainly other chlorinated paraffins are marketed, which are not called short-chain chlorinated paraffins, but as we will see later, they contain more than 1% of short-chain chlorinated paraffins, and by the definition of the convention are also then considered POP. And recently, medium-chain chlorinated paraffin have been proposed by the United Kingdom in 2021 as a POP to the POP Reviewing Committee, and will be now evaluated by the POP Reviewing Committee the next years to come. So I already highlighted the complexity. So for short-chain chlorinated paraffins, we have more than 5,000 possible congeners. The instrumental analysis is quite complex. You might check if you have chlorinated paraffin analysis in Oman, probably not. And also KISA in Kuwait has not yet developed the chlorinated paraffins, but they have looked to it. Maybe Hassan afterwards can tell us more. In other countries, regions, these short-chain chlorinated paraffins have been restricted earlier. Already in 1988 in Canada, it has been put to a list for assessment. In the US, already in 1995, it has been included in the list of toxic chemical substances. In 2002, it has been already regulated in the European Union. And then in 2006, it has been proposed to the Stockholm Convention as a POP, but it needed about 10 years, the evaluation of the short-chain chlorinated paraffins, until it was finally listed as a POP in 2017. So short-chain chlorinated paraffins are still produced, frequently in mixtures with medium-chain chlorinated paraffins. The estimate which have been made in 2016 was that we still have 165,000 tons of short-chain chlorinated paraffins produced. I will show you now a new publication from 2021, which indicate that rather 320,000 tons of short-chain chlorinated paraffins are produced today. Alternatives are available, but in the listing, a range of exemptions have been listed, but there has been no registration yet for any of these exemptions officially in the Secretariat. So the exemptions which have been listed were or are secondary plasticizers in PVC, but not in toys and children products, additives in transmission belts and synthetic rubber industry, exemption in the leather industry for fat liquoring of leather, exemption for lubricant additives for a range of different lubricants in use, exemption as metal processing in metal cutting fluids, exemption for waterproofing and fire retardant paint, and also for adhesive. So therefore, SCCP will be likely further produced and used and released. So therefore, an assessment of the current use and assessment of the need of the use and assessment of the alternatives and substitution is needed. Like I said, it has been listed 2017, and at the moment when you look to the POP reviewing committee, just MCCP has been added for assessment, but this will take at least also 3 years or maybe longer because there's huge production globally. Short-chain chlorinated paraffins are persistent, toxic, and bioaccumulative. They meet the criteria of persistent, but when you look to they are persistent, they are less persistent compared, for example, to PCBs and the chlorinated dioxins. They are also bioaccumulative. They are carcinogenic to rats and mice. They are categorized as group 2B carcinogen, as possible carcinogen for humans. They are reproductive toxic to mammals and birds. They have effects on the thyroid hormone system and nervous system of mammals, and they are very toxic to aquatic organisms and may cause long-term adverse effect in the aquatic environment. Chlorinated paraffin have substituted PCBs and PCNs in open applications. So already in the 1970s up to 2000. So therefore for PCNs, most of the uses and PCBs open application, they have gone and are only present in stocks. But today in these open applications, I just told the exemptions, cutting oil paints, sealants, flame retardants in PVC, the chlorinated paraffins are used, and the production of these chlorinated paraffins have increased by 2000%. The total production today of chlorinated paraffins, the production capacity is more than 2 million tons, mainly in China and India, and about 30% of this are short-chain chlorinated paraffins. When you look today into food oils, in China you find it in ppb concentration, in sewage sludge in Europe we find it in ppm concentrations. So you see, we have a very high use and a high release even in Europe. And just in 2021, chlorinated paraffin human milk study of WHO has been published, and it shows high concentration, even higher than PCBs. And this large use of chlorinated paraffins, you can also see when you look to the sediment cores. This is here for Switzerland, where you see that, wait a moment for the laser pointer, that the chlorinated paraffins have increased since the 1930s, very strong increase since the 1970s, while for PCBs, the concentration peaked here in the 1960s, early 70s, and then decreased along with the increase of the chlorinated paraffins. So you see the substitution of PCBs in the 1960s, 1970s, also in the environment. Yeah. And also when you look into biota in the environment, you see that, and this is logarithmic scale, chlorinated paraffins in the marine biota, the short chain chlorinated paraffins and the long chain chlorinated paraffins are increasing. The same you see already in the polar bears, high concentration in polar bears. And interesting maybe that you see also here, the medium chain paraffins are for some of the samples, of the more recent samples, even higher than the short chain chlorinated paraffins. Yeah, and that's probably also one reason why the UK now has proposed also medium chain paraffins, because you see already in biota the levels of medium chain paraffin is sometimes higher than short chain chlorinated paraffins. And when you go to China and you look to biota here in the environment, you see that more than 90% of all POP they detected here in the study come from chlorinated paraffins. And all other POPs together are only a tiny fraction compared to chlorinated paraffins in this study. But here China is the major producer and the highest level in the world. And in biota is found in China. Yeah. But you see, yes, chlorinated paraffins are very relevant and the exposure is increasing and increasing. So here the total production, like I said, we have production volume of nearly 2 million tons. And an estimate here for the short chain chlorinated paraffin here from Klüge, she estimated 20% with the 165,000 tons. And this is the study which has just been published a few months ago, measuring chlorinated paraffin mixtures from China. And you see that the major chlorinated paraffin, which is 90% of all of the Chinese chlorinated paraffin mixtures, CP52, contain always between 20% and 51% of short chain chlorinated paraffins. So based on this publication, you can say that we have about 320,000 tons of short chain chlorinated paraffins produced each year. And if you consider that here these mixtures are about 90% of the about 1 million tons, then about 900,000 tons of technical CP mixtures contain more than 20%. And this is considerable more than the 1% of short chain chlorinated paraffins and would therefore need to be considered POPs. Yeah. So you see that the production, and this is for each year. Yeah. And this at the moment does not, this slide does not show the Indian production. So here every year we get chlorinated paraffins in roughly the concentration of the total production of PCB in history. Yeah. So here we have huge coming of these chlorinated paraffins into the technosphere and into the use. And major use is here as plastic additives in PVC and as rubber additives. But also other uses are high. So what is needed is really product and waste monitoring to understand how these products come into different countries. We have from 10, 20 years ago some data from some countries where you see that here in Europe, the major use was in metalworking fluids, yeah, and some in rubber. But when you, for example, look to China, the major use is here in PVC. And also a recent study from China from 2020 is indicating that 80% of chlorinated paraffins, including short-chain chlorinated paraffins, is going into the PVC production. Yeah, so therefore PVC, rubber, and polyurethane foam in China is of major relevance, but we do not have any data from the Middle East. So this is the assessment. I just give you here the reference so you can have a look to that paper, how chlorinated paraffins are used in China. And I give you 2 case studies where you see how these chlorinated paraffins are finally leading to human exposure. This is a study from Germany where a friend of mine analyzed 20 baking ovens, yeah, where you make cakes and other things. So he analyzed 20 baking ovens, and 50% of these baking ovens contained very, very high levels of chlorinated paraffins indoor. This means this came from cables, and these PVC cables contained up to 10 to 15% chlorinated paraffins. And when you then are baking and cooking, these chlorinated paraffins come out. And at the moment, he has a study where he measures then the cakes and other products in the oven, how these chlorinated paraffins are transferred. A second study I would like to introduce, these are food blenders. This means also kitchen. And in Sweden, they analyzed 12 food blenders, and they found that 8 of these food blenders contained and were leaching milligram and micrograms of these chlorinated paraffins into the food. And what was interesting is that when this test was repeated, the release from these food blenders continued. So it was not decreasing after 1 to 3 times of use. So it seems also that here chlorinated paraffins were slowly released from plastic or from a specific lubricant oil used in these food blenders. So here we have a direct exposure into the food. So life cycle of chlorinated paraffins, also mainly what we see here from products. So the main exposure we do not have from these kind of classic release into the environment and accumulation in food. Yes, we have also this pathway, but the major exposure today come from products and indoor release, and we see very high levels of those in the dust. And also for chlorinated paraffins, we have a transfer to the next generation. And this is the result from a very recent study on 59 human milk from countries. So here, the chlorinated paraffin concentration were higher than PCBs, and only because some African countries have very high DDT concentration. Otherwise, in Europe, for example, the chlorinated paraffin are the highest concentrated POP in human milk today already. And this will increase with this increasing production. Therefore, shortly to the inventory. First, planning to the inventory, same like for PFOS, looking national inventory team, identification of key stakeholders, defining the scope of the inventory, developing the work plan. We have a detailed inventory guidance, so I recommend you that you have a look here to the detailed inventory guidance with different chapters about import, the use of chlorinated paraffin in manufacturing, and then different products like lubricants, and then other products and stocks, and chlorinated paraffins and waste and in contaminated sites. So first, to check initial information in Oman. Do you have a production of chlorinated paraffins in Oman? Probably not. But interestingly, we have looked in Qatar, and it seems that Qatar has their own production of chlorinated paraffins. So they are at the moment assessing. But chlorinated paraffins and other short-chain chlorinated paraffins and other chlorinated paraffins containing short-chain paraffins might be imported into the country. So such imports and exports should be recorded in the inventory. They might be now because short chain paraffins is also listed in the Rotterdam Convention, hopefully be reported also by Rotterdam. We have CAS numbers, we have HS codes which indicate chlorinated paraffin import. Here, these HS codes, I don't show the details, are listed in the inventory guidance, but please take care, these HS codes are not specific. So therefore, you need to also look to the CAS numbers. And also in our guidance, we have included the different CAS numbers of different chlorinated paraffin mixtures. You can then check for details in the imports. And I have already done a first assessment for imports from Oman, because India has already kind of a database where some data of exports to the different countries are included. So I have looked here for Oman, and here in the SOBA database for the year 2016, I found that about 30 tons of chlorinated paraffins have been exported from India to Oman. Yeah, so this gives you a rough idea what is the dimension of chlorinated paraffins coming into Oman. But here the chlorinated paraffins, there is no distinction between short chain and medium chain and long chain. And please be aware that China is a larger producer compared to India. But here from China, there is no data. And also from India, only the, let's say, the last data available for this database is from 2016. So it seems that they don't put everything into the internet. But this gives you already a first idea. So here, for your inventory, yes, you can look to this data, but then you can look to the import quantity, you can go to the customers, you can go to companies which are importing chemicals and look for the import quantity. And then there you need to try to get information about the short chain chlorinated paraffin content, about the CAS numbers for more detailed information. And then from those guys which are importing chlorinated paraffins, including short chain chlorinated paraffins, you should get the information for the downstream industries, to which industries they sell it. We have done it for example, for Brazil. We can give you also that report. That was the kind of one of the pilot countries for the testing. So manufacturing, which are interested in the countries, are if you have PVC production in the country, you would ask them if they are using a chlorinated paraffin. If you have rubber production, for example, for conveyor belts in the country, you would check these companies. If you have paint productions, leather productions, and adhesives or production of textiles, for all these sectors, you would do a check if they are using chlorinated paraffins. And all these are actually exempted. Yeah, the use in textile, the use in PVC, the use in rubber. So when you talk with the industry, you would not only ask if they are using it and the amount, but also you would check if they have alternatives and if the use of short chain chlorinated paraffin or other chlorinated paraffin can be stopped and can be substituted by others. So here we have done for other countries an assessment of PVC import. Yeah, that's another assessment you can do for Oman. And especially interesting, so we know that in China, most of the chlorinated paraffins are going into PVC. And luckily, for the import of PVC, the HS codes are very specific. So here you can look, for example, for PVC which contain more than 6% additive. Yeah, so this 392043. Yeah, so let's say that's then a PVC which might contain also chlorinated paraffins. So this assessment we have done also for other countries, including Kuwait. This example is for Indonesia, where you see, okay, so these are PVC which are imported here to a country with the CAS number. And this data you can get from the Comtrade database or from your customs. So this means checking import of soft PVC, import of specific rubber products like conveyor and transmission belt, or import of waterproof and fire retardant paint. And what we have seen in Europe, we have analyzed other consumer products which contain PVC or contain rubber, like sport equipment or yoga mats. And we have found that many of these products made out of PVC or rubber with additive are containing short-chain chlorinated paraffins above 1,500 milligram per kilogram, which is at the moment the limit for Europe for consumer products. Yeah, but you see here for the consumer products, you really need to do analysis. Yeah, but you see, oh, okay. So these chemicals are really everywhere today because they are produced in that high amount. So therefore, I think it's a very interesting pop for you to analyze also in the Middle East. And I hope that Kieser very soon will develop also chlorinated paraffin analysis. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Roland, for your wonderful speech. Now the floor is open for the discussion.
Hassan, is chlorinated paraffin under development?
In our laboratory, unfortunately not. What's going on? You know that Stockholm Convention, there's 4 themes. One is the air, which is we have many projects in that. Secondly, milk. Third, blood, which is we have a project right now for a new project for cattle, and I have a project for milk. Hopefully we'll submit the report within 2 months, the final report, and with water. So we have, for the 4 themes, we have good experience. But for BFAS, we started with BFAS, and probably we need to go with this SCCP later on to cover all the chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a gap with paraffins actually.
But you know, we have also good contact to a good group. Yeah, and so this means for example, if there is an import for chlorinated paraffin mixtures, I would have a possibility maybe to analyze some of the chlorinated paraffin mixtures. So we are interested to analyze the chlorinated paraffin mixtures in respect to their composition, short chain, medium chain, long chain, with the Japanese laboratory. Yeah, so maybe so for these kind of direct the mixtures which are imported, we are interested at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Roland. Yeah, I mean, we are really interested in, you know, in learning. This is the most important thing, learn things. So I mean, I think we have the instrument to do it. Some point somebody said that you have to be like LCMSMS with some trap or whatever. But now with the instrument we have in the lab, and for the levels that we are considering
looking for, we are not looking for the nanograms. Yeah,
exactly. We don't need to these tools. So I think anytime. I mean, if we had, we have to think about it. We didn't start it yet. But yeah, we should be interested in learning how to do it, and if we can do it here and help the countries in our
region, okay,
that would be great. That would be great.
Okay, good. Yeah. So if there are no questions, Yasser, maybe then will Shireen tell a bit on the questionnaire?
Or I think Suman is also there. Maybe if he can share something, he can do that thing. Dr. Suman. If Suman doesn't have any comment, I think we can go with Shireen.
Okay.